Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a super simple tote bag. Really practical, really stylish, but amazingly easy to make. It's a great beginner project or even for a more experienced sewer. You can make them as small as you like for gift bags, as large as you like for your folders for studying or perhaps to bring the shopping home. Make them for gifts, give them whoever you like. So I'm Christine of christinescrafts.com and this channel's all about crafting on a budget. So the first thing you're going to need are your two pieces of fabric to make the bag. To make one like mine, they need to be 13 inches wide and 11.5 inches tall. Of course, you can change these measurements to make whatever size bag you like, but whatever size you make them, you're going to need the two identical pieces to make your bag. You're also going to need some pieces for your handles or straps, depending what you call them. You want to cut two pieces of fabric that are 3 inches wide and 25 inches long. Again, if you want longer handles, just cut them bigger than 25 inches long. But however big you make them, you are going to need two of them. So make sure you cut two out. And that's it, that's all you need. And then we can get started making up the bag. So get your two pieces of fabric and place one on top of the other with right sides together. Now make sure they're both the right way up that you want them. You don't want any upside down prints, clowns jumping the wrong way or whatever your fabric is. And pin them together around 3 of the sides. Do it about 1/2 inch in because that's the sort of seam allowance you should be using. So just pin along one side, along the bottom, one of the longer sides, and then back up the other side. So you can see you're forming a bag. Once you're all the way around, we're going to sew that seam. Making sure we use about 1/2 inch seam allowance. So it's over to the machine, pop it in, run a little bit, do a reverse so that your seam can't come undone later. Whiz down one side. At each of the corners, make sure you lift the foot and do a proper 90-degree turn to get a good corner. And then once you get to the end, a little bit of reversing so that your seam can't come undone. And that's it, you've completed the basic bag shape. Now I recommend that at those bottom corners, you cut the corner off to reduce the bulk. Now be very careful not to cut too close to your stitches so that you damage them and you end up with a hole in your bag. You're just getting rid of some of that extra fabric that you no longer need. Another tip I would give you is to then move on to pressing those seam allowances at the side because you really want them to open up. If you can get them nice and open, the bag will feel less bulky at those side seams. To pop over to your ironing board and press those side seams. You'll see I'm using a little tiny ironing board on my ironing board, which is one for sleeves. If you haven't got one, don't worry, just put the bag down flat. And you'll see that's how I'm going to do it now. To do the bottom, just pop it down flat, open the seam up and press it. So now you've got nice open seams. So we need to form a hem on the top of the bag. So go to one of the side seams, turn over approximately 1/2 inch and then turn another 1/2 inch so that you enclose all the raw edge. Go to the other side seam and do it again. Turn over 1/2 inch and then turn over another 1/2 inch. Check they're about the same size. If they're not, adjust and then pin that. And then you're going to work your way all the way around doing the same thing. So you'll notice that I always do either side seam and then I do in the center, and then you can naturally get it to fold and it makes it much easier to work your way around. Do it on the other side. Again, go for the middle and then go for either edge. Once you've got the whole thing pinned, you just want to make sure it's right. So just take a little bit of time to check that all the way along the top is nice and even, that either side of the bag is the same length. So just check that. And then once you're happy, you need to sew that in place. So it'll be back to the machine to sew that hem down. So run along the edge of that seam to catch it down and make sure it's a nice neat edge. It's going to act as a top stitch on the outside of the bag as well as holding that hem in place. It just means your bag will be nice and tidy, no fraying edges. You just work your way around carefully. It should sit nicely over your sewing machine. And when you get back round to where you started, you're going to go over that starting stitching a little way so that it captures it in, and then do a little bit of a reverse. Again, this is so that your stitches don't come undone. So now we need to think about the handles. So take each handle in turn and fold it in half along its length. You're going to have to press this to hold it in place. So work your way all the way along. See, I just keep moving it up. Fold it carefully. Press it in place until you get all the way to the other end. So you should now have formed a perfect crease all the way along the centre. So open it back up, and then along one side, fold the edge in to the fold that runs up the centre. It's better to be a little bit short of the fold than to go over the fold, because we're going to use all these folds in a moment, so you don't want any bits bulking up and folding over again in the middle. So just work your way along, nice and steady, getting that edge nice and crisp, and it will fold nicely. So turn it round and repeat for the other side. You want the other edge pressed in so that it has a nice neat fold, and will sit in a moment when we fold it all back together. What we're doing here is making sure we get a nice neat handle with no raw edges, and we don't have that awful job of trying to pull the handle through on itself once you've sewn it, because we're going to sew this on the right side. Once you've got all your folds, fold those two new folds in and fold the handle along the middle. So you should now have captured all your raw edges nice and neatly. Work your way along, making sure those folds are held in place, and add some pins or some clips, depending what you prefer to use. Just work your way along. You want to make sure it's all secure and that your edges line up beautifully, because this is your handle and this is how it is going to look. The only addition is going to be the stitches to hold it in place. Once you get all the way to the other end and you're happy with it, you're going to repeat the whole process with the other handle piece, because you obviously need two of these, and then once you've got two completed, you can look to sew them. So take one over to the machine and just run along the edge of the handle. I recommend about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Turn it round and do the same on the other side. So you're now running along the side that has the fold rather than the seam. Do the same on the other handle. Run along it so you're fastening it closed. Turn it round and run along the side that has the fold, and you'll get some really nice professional looking handles. So now you need to go back to your bag, turn it the right way out, make sure you get those corners poked out. A chopstick works well if you're struggling, and we can attach the handles. So this is about a bit of careful measurement. So take one end of one of the handles and we're going to measure in from the side seam 3 inches. Again, if you're making your bag a different size, just adapt your measurements to what you think suits your bag. You can do it by eye, but I measure in 3 inches. Mark it and measure down 4 inches from the top. Once you've got that point that is 3 inches in from the side and 4 inches down from the top, that's where the bottom of your strap's going. But you need to fold about 1/2 an inch under on your strap because you don't want any raw edges. Place that corner where you've marked it and pin it in place. You then need to make sure your strap is exactly vertical up your bag and pin it again at the top. And you should have a nice neat strap. Now that same strap, you're going to loop it round and do the same with the other end, but on the other side of that same side of the bag. You're just going to measure the same measurements, 3 inches from the side seam, but you're doing it from the other side seam. Once you've done that, you're going to check them. Check they're both 3 inches from the edge. Check they're both 4 inches down. Now what we'll see is the one on the right hand side is not quite right. So I will adjust it. Take your time here and get them right, because otherwise you'll notice it later and it will really annoy you. So take your time to get them exactly where you want them before you even think about sewing. Also, make sure your strap hasn't twisted as you've looped from one side to the other. You want a nice smooth strap. Once you're happy, it's time to turn the bag over and repeat this process on the other side with the other handle. And you can see you're now getting to the point where you are forming your bag and you're nearly finished. So repeat on this side, and then once they're done, we're going to sew them in place. Make sure your bag is still a bag and you haven't pinned your two sides together. And now we're going to sew. So you're forming a rectangle on each handle where it overlaps the bag. You can run along the stitches, the top stitching that you've already got, and make a very professional, tidy job. So it's back to the sewing machine. Make sure you don't catch the other half of the bag in. It's a little bit fiddly, just take your time. And you're going to sew down from the top of the bag, right down the top stitching, to fasten that handle to the bag. And you go right down to the bottom of the strap, and that will involve going over the little bit you folded over, which is a bit thicker, so just take care. Make sure your little fold doesn't come undone. And then when you get to the bottom, you're going to make sure the needle's in, lift the foot, turn through 90 degrees and cross the bottom of the handle. And then you're going to make sure the needle's in, lift the foot and turn to come back up the other side of the bag handle. Now you can see you're having to wiggle all that bag through under the machine. Just take your time. Nobody's timing you, there's no rush. Then when you get to the top, needle in, lift the foot, turn 90 degrees and sew along the top. And again, make sure you reverse to get a good strong seam at the end and to make sure nothing comes undone. So you'll now have sewn a nice little box that's sewn the handle in place all the way. Repeat for the other 3 and your bag is complete. So enjoy making your bag and enjoy using your bag, and I hope you adapt it and make lots of different sizes and lots of different varieties. So if you've enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up below. You can subscribe to my channel to see all my other videos, and thank you for watching. Bye.